Hi, I'm Mark Cunningham with Grace Property Management. We've worked with thousands of real estate investors here in Colorado over the last several decades. Let me share with you the 6 biggest mistakes we've seen real estate investors, landlords, make when they're doing the security deposit return to a tenant moving out of a property. Legally, it's called a security deposit disposition, where they decide, okay, is there damage that needs to be withheld? Is any money withheld from the tenant's deposit, and I'm going to retain that as the landlord? And how much am I going to return to my ex-tenant? Has to be done every time a tenant moves out of a property. The 6 biggest mistakes that we see landlords make. Number 1 is taking too long. Did you know that in Colorado, there is a law that specifically states that you as a real estate investor, as a landlord, you have 30 days from the time the tenant vacates to refund the tenant security deposit, or up to 60 days if your lease specifically says you have 60 days. So if your lease is silent on that issue, you only have 30 days. If your lease gives you up to 60, then you can take the full 60. Now, this is important because if you pass that timeline, you automatically forfeit any right to retain the tenant security deposit, and you are potentially liable for treble the amount to be refunded to the tenant. So it's very important that you make sure the time is proper in how quickly you're processing the security deposit and getting it back to your vacated tenant. Number 2 mistake we see is confusing wear and tear versus damage. Now, this can be tricky. There is a law in Colorado that clearly defines what damage is and what wear and tear is. We have done a longer post, and I'll link to it in this post, on understanding the definition of wear and tear, understanding the legal distinction and the difference between something that should be considered wear and tear, meaning you cannot charge that thing to the tenant's deposit, or damage, which you could charge. A hole in the wall, that would be damage. Tack holes in the wall, that would be wear and tear. If things wear out and break over time because it's not because of negligence, then you cannot charge that to the tenant security deposit. And this is important because if you charge this and you're found to violate this, just like on the timeline, you as the landlord are now responsible for treble the amount of the return to your vacating tenant. So it's very important to understand, and again, we'll link to this to make sure that you have a clearer understanding of what is wear and tear and versus what is damage. Number 3, saying that a deposit is non-refundable. This often comes into place, for example, if you as a landlord allow pets and you say, okay, Mr. Tenant, you're going to pay a non-refundable deposit of $100 to have your dog. The word non-refundable deposit is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. A deposit, legally, a deposit by definition is refundable. So there's no such thing under the law as a non-refundable deposit. All deposits are by definition refundable. So if you called something a non-refundable deposit, well, you tripped yourself up and you're going to have to refund that to the tenant. You cannot retain that for any reason if you use the word deposit in the definition. Hopefully that makes sense. Kind of a technical thing there, but it's important to understand that distinction. Number 4, just forgetting to check that final utility bill. Most utilities are billed in arrears in Colorado. So the water bill, for example, if you own a single family property and the tenant moves out and they left the property in great condition and you're going to refund their full deposit, well, make sure you call the utility company and get that final water bill, because it's not going to be billed for a whole month usually until after the tenant has vacated. And you don't want to refund all that only to find out the tenant had a $100 outstanding water bill that you should have withheld from their deposit so that you as the landlord, as the property owner, could pay that bill. So be sure that you're tracking utilities closely. Number 5 is overcharging for your time involved in bringing the property back to rent-ready condition. So let's pretend a tenant moves out of your property and it looks pretty good, but you have to go in and you have to paint a wall where their child took some crayons and wrote all over it. And so you go in and you repaint the wall and you charge the tenant for the repainting of the wall. Now, what can you charge the tenant? Well, you can charge them for the paint, you can charge them for the material. What you can't charge them for is the time, your time, that it took to repaint the wall. Now, if you hire a contractor to go in and repaint that wall, that entire expense could be charged to the tenant's security deposit. But if you as the landlord, if you as the property owner say, well, I'll just go paint it myself and I'll bill the tenant for my time, you typically cannot do that in Colorado. Your time is not back billable to the tenant for work you did to bring the property back to rent-ready condition. So if you have to go mow the lawn because they didn't mow it when they moved out and it looks terrible, Yeah, you could charge them technically for the gas, but you can't really charge them for your time of you being out there pushing the mower. Now that may sound unfair, but that's the way Colorado law typically works. There are some exceptions, as there are with everything, but most of the time you can't charge for your time. And then the last thing, number 6, is this. Make you as the landlord not understanding the life expectancy of an item. So let's pretend that your tenant moved into a property. At the time they moved in, the carpet was 5 years old. It was in good condition, but it was 5 years old. That tenant there lived there for another 5 years. And they moved out of the property and they destroyed the carpet. They damaged the carpet. Beyond wear and tear, they had holes in the carpet. They poured grease on the carpet. They damaged the carpet. Can you charge that ex-tenant, the vacating tenant, for the replacement cost of the carpet? Well, it was 5 years old when they moved in. They were there another 5 years. That carpet now has exceeded its life expectancy. Carpets don't have a life expectancy in rentals properties of more than 10 years. So to be technical, you probably, in most situations, should not be charging anything to the tenant for the carpet. Now, the property owner may say, but that doesn't make any sense. They destroyed the carpet. They ruined the carpet. Yes, they did. However, the life expectancy of the carpet had been exceeded, and therefore it doesn't matter if they destroyed it or not. Its life expectancy is past. So whether they put a hole in the carpet or whether they left the carpet beautiful or whether they burned it, doesn't matter. You probably do not have a legal right to charge them for damage to that because of the life expectancy. And everything in the property has a different life expectancy. Carpet, paint, the appliances, the blinds, everything's going to have a different life expectancy. We have a life expectancy formula that we use, and we have different life expectancy valuations. So that way, if a tenant moves in and the carpet's brand new and they're there for 4 years and they destroy the carpet, you can charge them for a portion, a percentage of the replacement of that carpet based upon the life expectancy, how many years it was there, how many years you have left. So a little bit complicated, but that's just the way it works in the world of property management here in Colorado. If you're a client, an owner-client of Grace Property Management, don't worry. We do all of those things for you as part of our full-service property management process. If you're not one of our clients and we can be a resource, feel free to jump on our website, rentgrace.com. You'll find a lot of resources out there. Until next time, I wish you success.